Hi there. It's time to look at crypto, fintech, and payments infrastructure projects, including Ripple, XLM, Stellar, and XCN Onyxcoin. So, as usual, I'll cover the Wyckoff stage of each of these projects, potential price change, as well as key price levels. These are education content only, not financial advice. To help you avoid FOMO and avoid panic, the Asset Lens dashboard is now available on Substack. So it includes a macro dashboard as well as a crypto dashboard. Go check it out while it's still free. Let's start with the Ripple. We talk about Ripple, it's somewhere close to the panic over stage. If you are new to my sessions, how do I determine this? So it's an educated guess, okay? It's not a must because the world is changing every day. Like 2 months ago, we don't know there will be a war that's going to last, longer than expected. So things like this are going to change the sentiments of people and the investment market as well as liquidity. So it's not static, but history gives us some clue. So just take a look at this over here. I want you to briefly memorize these two candles. Okay, one very large candle with a long wick. The second one, shorter candle with also a long wick from the bottom relative to the size of the candle body. Okay, two candles and two volume bars. The longer, bigger candlestick has a shorter volume bar. This one, the shorter candlestick with a long wick, has a much larger volume bar, meaning the price, there were people, quite a lot of them selling, but, also quite a lot of people buying compared to this gigantic candle, all right? It seems it doesn't make sense to you. So how to read these, the way I see it is that particular one, yes, there were people selling crazily and also people buying the dip, but it's not as much as what happened over here. So that's how my interpretation is. It is likely whales getting in over here while a lot of people are trying to get out. Okay? So that's why the price did not move that much compared to this crazy candle. Okay? But the volume is multiple of that. This is what happened just in the past half a year. Let's go back to what happened over here in 2022, 21, end of 21, and eventually 22. Remember the two candlesticks, right? The larger candlestick earlier, when it was first dropping from the second peak. Let's put it this way. So there are two bulge. I'll get back to this later, but remember the first candle, larger, longer with a long wick from the bottom. Okay, traded sort of sideways with like these kind of relief rallies, and eventually another candlestick with a long wick. And the similarity here, look at the volume. The second one, again, the volume was way higher than the first one. Okay, this one back then, it wasn't like 2 times. Maybe it's just around 1.5, 1.4, 1.5, but still remains very similar. All right. So let's get back to this part. Okay, we've got the first formal, the second round, and eventually this activity before dropping to that second candle. All right, we've got our first round back in 2024, early 2025, second round, late 2025, and then big drop, relief rallies, and then the second candle where high volume kicked in. All right, so that explains how I'm reading these and determine whether we are close to a panic over stage or not, or whether whales have probably gone in. Get it? So I hope this gives you a better sense, how to determine what's going on over there, because it's not always obvious. Sometimes you need a little bit of experience, and honestly, it involves a bit of guessing as well, because it reads that way. But like I said in the beginning, the world is constantly changing. Even if whales have gone in during that time, it was still early February. All right, assuming they don't know there will be a strike, or kind of like a war in Middle East, their minds would change. Their calculations of risk will change after those incidents happen. And they may get out of it, even if they have gone in here. Okay, if there are people to buy and their models tell them, okay, the price may have to further adjust because the liquidity is going to go elsewhere, the whales that have gone in may leave. Okay, that's why we see sometimes the subsequent tests may go deeper than the initial stage where it seems to have reached a selling climax, the silent period. All right, when things change, those whales will adjust. This was the period where, especially here, COVID was started, widely. How do I say it? Widely spread on the news. Okay, I'm not talking about the virus. The virus, nobody knows actually, how far it has gone by then. But late 19, early 2020, that was the time when a lot of news started to spread out, and that's when the price dropped below the initial low. All right, so for XRP, it's still at the early stage of accumulation, meaning the whales checking out paper hands, diamond hands will still continue until the point there are no more paper hands, plus there are a bunch of good news lining up that can allow the price to go up for a couple of weeks. I've explained this in recent sessions. If you look at the previous FOMOs, a lot of them last less than or just around 2 months. They're less than 10 weeks, let's put it this way. All right. For the case of Ripple, if you look at what happened back in 2018, it went past $3. But how long did it take? 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, 4 candles, 4 weekly candles. Here, again, let's count. The first one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it started to drop just to get the last round of people coming in with much lower volume. So that signals the end of it. So 2 times below 10 weeks. This time, it's way more violent. Okay, from the first, second, third, fourth, and it started to drop. Look at the volume decline, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 long candles going up from that platform stage. Okay, with the initial decline already signaling, combined with the volume, the steam is running out. This last bit, you can tell from the volume, it was more or less like a joke, right? Compared to what happened to the initial FOMO. So that's what it is. It's just basic human behavior repeating again and again. And the charts tell us exactly what happened. And if we look at the daily, we can see Ripple is still in the downtrend. Like I shared many sessions since how long ago? July. All right. So in this last week, we talked about the 1.35 yellow key level. Should be a support, but it's not like it can't go below. The price can still go test the 1.23 because that's what it did back in beginning of Feb. And indeed, it came down below the yellow line. The only thing that can help ease part of the worry is that you see the decline of the volume. There's no big move from the bears. They're not pushing it very hard to the south. All right, but that doesn't mean the price won't go any further. It can still go that way. There are a bunch of economic numbers coming out from the US. So every single month, last month in March, I mentioned about this, and then the price shot up just enough to hit the resistance, and then started to decline. So let's see what's going to happen when these numbers starting to come out. Of course, part of this is the prolonged war, okay, that triggered this kind of decline as well. People's sentiments are constantly changing. So when we get to May, there is a new Fed chair, people will speculate something else, but this doesn't change. If the price continues to move towards the right-hand side over here, we have already got these dates marked. So this one we can take away. This is a stretch window, okay? Meaning if the price really managed to come back to above the yellow key level, or even passes the green before this date, this is a time point where a confirmation will come in. So likewise for these days, what kind of confirmation? Either one of the options. Either it breaks outside of this downtrend finally after half a year, or it breaks these support levels and continue with the downtrend. So there's only two options. If it breaks outside, that means it's ending the downtrend, but doesn't mean it can immediately shoot up. In the past, some people left a comment and thought, when I say breakout, it means it's going to shoot up. It's not like that. Okay, there are at least two ways, if not an immediate return to the downtrend. Okay, when it breaks outside of this bigger downtrend, this channel, it can bounce sideways along the key levels, or it can break above a certain key level and try to test the other one. Of course, there's a third one, but usually it bounced between two key levels and then started another downtrend. So this bouncing or stabilizing time usually happens there. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes shorter. If it takes shorter, we probably won't notice that kind of sideways before it goes down. All right, so it's not as simple as like breakout means the price shoot up. Okay, don't misunderstand the terms. So this is likely going to continue. Okay, the base case is between 1.23, the orange key level, and 1.35. Unless any of this data is going to surprise the market, then it is going to drive it to whatever direction those numbers support. However, just to be careful, if it goes up like what it did here in mid-March as well as here in mid-February, this still remains a very strong resistance, the green key level of 1.54. See how long the wick here, how long is the wick here? The bears are selling heavily whenever the price got to that level. And if you don't see a very significant volume, white bar or green bar in your case if your chart is green, for like the price go up, if you don't see something like this or at least half of this, those are likely going to die down afterwards. It has shown us it's going to do it repeatedly. Unless you see a whole series of white volume bars continuously coming in. Otherwise, this range bound thing is still the base case because the macro environment, macro sentiment, liquidity just hasn't changed. So next is Stellar. So similar sense, Stellar, again, if you're interested, you see big red candle, long wick from the bottom, initial big red candle, long wick from the bottom, after the second bulge, and then another round of red candles. So there's one with a long wick here, or you can just count, simply this, before the kind of sideways movement, and then the further drop. Same thing here, long wick from the bottom, kind of sideways movement, drop further to the bottom. Okay, very similar across different charts. And also remember the volume. The volume bar is obviously higher. Of course, this one was pretty close. Okay, but still, if you take into the consideration of the candle body size, the relative candlestick body size, the small candlestick with a volume similar or even higher than the larger one means something else. Okay, so let's go back to the daily chart while, Stellar is also in the early stage of Wyckoff accumulation. Key levels for Stellar, 1.57, we talked about this, the blue key level, 0.157 and 0.172, the purple key level. Range bound between these two key levels. Same thing happened this week. What happened 2 days ago is that it broke below this uptrend support. Higher lows broke down. All right, so we can take out this line and also this date. What's remaining is here. These two key dates. Remember, it started from early February. This range bound is basically has been happening for 2 months. And while this continues, 4 days ago, the price tried to go up. The bulls push it above the purple key level of 17 cents 20. Try to take opportunity of this window, this triangle over here, and break outside the downtrend. They failed, got rejected heavily, high volume, price continues to come down, and the volume declined to a level that the bears aren't really pushing that hard anymore. You can attribute these 2 days to weekend with low activities. That's fine. So it remains the option of 13th of April and 22nd of April. All right. If the bears aren't pushing anymore and the bulls continue to defend this 0.157, then eventually they'll have to get to this point to make a decision. All right, is the downtrend continuing to at least 1 more week? There's yellow dash line over here where strong buying the dip activity happened. But remember, this was before the Iran strike. Okay, so things are kind of like going more chaotic now. And more uncertain now. So whether there will still be this kind of action when the price, or if the price really comes back to retest this yellow dash line, this level of 14 cents 68 or 14 cents 70, if you want to make it simple. That's a big question. If the bulls are successful in defending this, much like what happened in the beginning of February, then April 22nd would be the day that this long downtrend is finally coming to an end. All right, it started in mid-July last year for Stellar. It differs from different altcoins. Some started as early as May. Some started very late around August, September. For the case of Stellar, it started mid-July. And it is getting to this point. During the downtrend, there was only one time back in October that it almost broke outside of it, but got heavily rejected. You can attribute that to tariff announcement. That's when it's continued with the long downtrend. Till this point, the second time, it is testing the ceiling. Once again, the downtrend ceiling. That's where it's potentially have a chance to get outside of it. But remember, like I said, in Ripple's case, breaking out doesn't mean the price is going to shoot up immediately. It can go sideways. And if the world is still so uncertain and liquidity still doesn't come back, there is a chance that it develops a shorter downtrend before it really stabilizes. Okay, look at some of these things over here, right? It dropped, kind of stabilized, dropped again, and then that's when it started that actual sideways movement. Same over here, sideways for quite a few months. Actually, if you look at this, it's June all the way to November. So 5 to 6 months time before it dropped again. And then the real bottom came in. So that's what it is. All right. Because the world is constantly changing, the charts are following, or it reflects what we have gone through in history. It gives us a sense to guesstimate or speculate where we are at, but it's not 100% the same every time. So we can use it as a guidance, not like a prophecy. Okay, don't misunderstood that it is definitely going to happen that way. It's not like that, unless the world is happening. Having same things happening again and again at the same time, like round after round, like in those movies, right? You've got endless loops, and then you restart, and then the same things happen again, and then you get into a different stage where you can't get through previously, and then you failed again, and then you start from the beginning. Okay, it's just not like that. Every time there are going to be things different, factors different. The world, liquidity is different. Okay, now XCN Onyxcoin, a little bit further into the accumulation cycle. All right, it has reached a point where that should be the panic over stage. It had an automatic rally, setting the trading range top at the orange key level of 0.0096, and then the paper hands, diamond hands test comes in. So that's what it is. The volume continued to stay low, except the week where we've got that automatic rally. Okay. So daily chart, we talked about this downtrend. We said we are getting close to a point. This confirmation will come in. What is this confirmation? So the base case is range bound between this yellow dashed line. That's a level of 0.0046. Okay, let me extend this further. And the upper boundary is this T level of 0.0063, is acting as the resistance right now. Okay, so April 3rd already passed, because last week when we were conducting our session, the price was still hovering around the blue key level of 0.0051. And what I said was, if it managed to stay above the blue line, this triangle will give an opportunity to confirm this downtrend is over. And now, obviously, you see the price drop on the 31st, and then we are getting close to the second window. That's April 9th. You can see the bulls and bears are very cautious at that level. Very low volume for 5 days in a row, okay? Even before weekend comes in. And the price spread is very, very narrow. Let me update this date. That's pointing to April 16th. So why do I want to add this? Because we're at this moment where the moment of truth will be revealed. Okay, is the price going to shoot outside of this downtrend? If the base case is true, meaning it's a sideways trading between the yellow dashed line and the purple, it should come out. Okay? It should come out of this downtrend and then bounce upwards. Okay, whether it receives immediate resistance from the blue line, like what it did back in early March, as well as late Feb. It tested that 2 times. Okay, or is it going to behave somewhat like mid-March, where it tested it multiple weeks, 3 weeks in a row, and then eventually broke up to challenge the purple key level? Okay, this may repeat again if this is really the range that the big guys are setting for however long until the risk on mode comes back. If, however, the sentiment and the macro environment and liquidity go further south, this may turn to this April 16th date, okay, the next window. Look at what happened over here. Back in December 2025, 2 times the price went below the yellow dashed line. So that's where it is. The light blue key level of 0.004. Okay, this downside can still happen, especially if you look at today, the long wick from the top, and 4 days ago, the long wick from the top. Even though the volume is a bit low, it still means something. All right, so the economic data that's going to come out from the US is going to play a big role, plus the development of the war. Any of those two, when they surprise the market, that's going to drive those movements. But don't get overexcited, because those may not last long. All right, like what it did over here, even if it showed up, there's still a chance for it to exhibit the same thing again. Okay, it looks like a mini FOMO, and then set kind of like an LPSY or second test, and then it comes back down. But Wyckoff is better to stay at the weekly level, because otherwise it's going to be too noisy in the weekly or in the daily. I mean, in the daily interval or lower. If you're interested to access these sessions 2 days earlier than the others, join the other members now. And remember, the dashboard is available for free at the moment at Substack XLMs. Thank you. See you in the next session.